Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Well, coming up, Windsor police help bust up an international auto theft ring. We look at how these high-end vehicles were stolen and ways to protect your own car. Plus, Windsor Essex marks Emancipation Day this weekend. I spoke with an organizer who's trying to get the celebrations back to where they were more than 50 years ago, and how a digital duet brought these two artists together ahead of their onstage debut tonight. Well, police say they've busted an international auto theft ring centered here in Windsor. The thieves targeted high-end vehicles using new age techniques. The CBC's TJ Deere shares the details.
Over the last few years, we have seen a surge in the number of vehicle thefts and carjackings.
138 vehicles, collectively worth more than $9 million. That's what the OPP says was seized as a part of Project Fairfield, including more than $500,000 worth of illicit drugs. 279 charges have been laid against 23 people, 13 of them from Windsor and one more from Bell River. These are the results of an investigation launched by Windsor Police last April that the OPP took over in September. Police say most of the vehicles were stolen from Windsor, Essex, with some cars also being stolen from Toronto. Police say the thieves would reprogram the key fobs to get access to their cars. Once they were stolen, some cars were transported to the ports in Montreal and Halifax, where they were shipped to Colombia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and countries in the Middle East. But not all vehicles were transported overseas.
The stolen vehicles that were not sent abroad were being fraudulently modified in a process called re-VINing, whereby vehicle identification numbers, or VINs, are altered. By modifying the VINs of these vehicles, the crime group was able to fraudulently register the vehicles and resell them for criminal profit.
The OPP says 3 of the accused remain in police custody, while the others were released on what Bradford says are conditions that he hopes will convince them not to reoffend until they next appear in court. While police says this ring began a few months before their investigation began, an industry expert says auto thefts have been a problem for decades.
The height of the problem probably goes back to the early 2000s. I think in Canada at that point in time, the federal government undertook an initiative to require vehicle manufacturers to put immobilizers on vehicles to prevent them from being stolen.
Adam says Ottawa needs to do more, and these industry experts agree, saying thefts cost Canadians $1 billion a year. Police have busted multiple rings in Ontario, with one of those experts saying thefts have increased in Toronto by 300% over the last 5 years. The province says a car is stolen every 48 minutes in Ontario and will spend $51 million to target auto thieves over the next 3 years. But experts say not enough is being done to stop them at the border.
We've been making that case that the Canadian Border Services Agency have not been doing their job. They've allowed this to go on, and this is really proof that organized crime is using stolen vehicles to bring guns, gangs, and drugs into the country.
A spokesperson for the CBSA says the agency is unable to respond immediately. In order to prevent your car from being stolen, the anti-fraud organization Equité Association says you can do things such as purchasing an aftermarket deterrent, turning off the car and locking it, equipping it with a GPS tracker, or parking in well-lit areas or a secure garage. Equité Association also says prospective car owners should exercise caution if you're not buying from a dealership. They say you should do a complete follow-up of the VIN to make sure it hasn't been altered and not reported as stolen. They also say you should consider bringing someone else with you, purchasing a Carfax Canada vehicle history report, and reporting any suspicious activity to local police. TJ Deere, CBC News, Windsor.
The head of the Unemployed Help Center says they're overwhelmed by the support that's helped them secure a new truck.
1, 2, 3. Hard. Got it hard.
Hold down. There we go.
Doesn't that look great?
This massive Mack truck will be used to rescue fresh produce from greenhouses. Because of auto supply issues, it was on back order for a year. The vehicle cost $200,000, paid for by sponsors throughout the area.
We have, since 2012, we have rescued over 30 million pounds of food. So think of a pound of butter. That's a lot of food. That's a lot of produce. And that produce has been shared throughout Windsor and Essex County, up the highway to Indigenous communities. We help who we can. We also do food swaps. So we might not have cereal, we might not have certain food items where people from out of town, from food banks, will come down with their trucks and they'll give us food and we give them produce. So it works. It's a win-win situation. This is awesome. Windsor, Essex County is a very caring community, and our local unions have been very supportive, as well as national, and they've been with us since 1977. So to be able to reach out to them, as well as Eric, was awesome, and No one right away said no. They said, how can we help? Yes, we're there. We're going to get this truck. And they were here.
A local MP is weighing in on Canadian news being taken off social media. Eric Kuzmarchuk says tech companies need to pay their fair share when it comes to news content on its platforms.
And that's why we're stepping up to protect Canadian journalism, to protect Canadian content creators, and really to protect Canadians, because we rely on news on a day-to-day basis. It's absolutely critical. So for the Canadian, for the tech giants to pull those news sources is irresponsible.
Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, is in the midst of removing Canadian news content from its platforms over the next few weeks. It's in response to Bill C-18, otherwise known as the Online News Act. That legislation was passed in July. It requires the companies to pay news organizations when a user gets to a web story through a link on one of their products. Google has threatened similar action, but is in talks with the government with the hopes of finding a solution. Now, we did reach out to Conservative MP Chris Lewis. He didn't get back to our request, but we did receive a response from a Conservative Party spokesperson who said it was Conservatives who warned Liberals that their overreaching laws, giving them limitless power to control and regulate the internet, would restrict freedom and prevent Canadians from accessing news and content online, and said now that's exactly what's happening. Meanwhile, NDP MP for Windsor West Brian Massey called the Liberal Party's approach arrogant, but said it's no excuse to punish Canadians who contribute to the tech companies' economic success.
The work that we've undertaken is foundation restoration. And in addition to the foundation restoration, we've insulated the foundations below grade. We have put on exterior cladding on the home that's insulated to reduce the energy consumption. We have changed the forced air gas furnaces to heat pumps, introduced heat recovery ventilation, and also introduced heat recovery in the drain tubes for the wastewater.
Well, that's how officials described some of the work done to 4 not-for-profit homes in the Essex area. The work funded with $500,000 from the federal government. The nonprofit kicked in $125,000 of its own funds. The pilot project expects to cut energy usage in half. They also believe homes will emit 76% fewer greenhouse gases and reduce utility bills by 14%. If successful, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities says it could go to 120 homes owned by Essex nonprofit. Well, Windsor is marking Emancipation Day this weekend. Events will start tomorrow with a full weekend of activities planned by the Black Council of Windsor, Essex. I had the chance to chat with Leslie McCurdy about this year's celebrations.
The potential, if we had any imagination in this city, this in of itself could be a great tourist draw.
This used to be a location where a lot of the activities during the Emancipation celebrations took place. When you look at it now, what do you think?
Well, it's kind of sad to see this stage in such disrepair because of its historic importance to the city and because of how useful it could be now. As an artist, performer myself, I see the potential in that stage. But it's really important to keep the Emancipation celebrations going because they are a part of Windsor's history and a very important part of Windsor's Black population here. And that's why the Black Council tries to keep it going through our Emancipation Jubilee. And we're not here. We're at the Caribbean Center on Saturday for, I would say, the party part of our Jubilee with a fashion show, the bands Rochelle Day and Danny Asiato and Black Orchid playing. And then Sunday, we're at Sandwich First Baptist Church, where we have a community conversation discussing woke versus anti-woke and what that means to the Black community. And that's followed by a gospel concert of 4 soloists, Sharon Wilson, Rodney Jones, Brittany Groves, and Nadine Monroe-Wackrow, who are all just going to blow the roof off the church. And then on Sunday, we're back here at Jackson Park over by the picnic area just for a family gathering and bring your own food and drink where it'll be more casual. We'll have a few activities for the kids, maybe a few games, and the Essex County Black Historical Research Society will actually lead tours through this area of the park to talk about the significance of the Emancipation celebrations and the importance of the bandshell here. The Black Council itself is trying to do this celebration, but there have been a number of people. like I said, it's an important celebration here, and there have been a number of people over the years that have tried to keep something going. I know Joy Hurst and Mark Taylor for a while, Bradley Jones, the Amherstburg Freedom Museum. I mean, everybody keeps trying, and we're just the latest incarnation. And I think what makes it a little bit different with the Black Council is that it's a group that's trying together. Like, we have a number of organizations that are working to do it together, and always be inviting more, because I think, united we stand, and that's the way we're going to be able to keep things going forward.
You've been doing it for 3 years. What do you hope, I guess, for the next 3, the next 5, the next 10?
Well, I would hope that we would be able to get some funding into maybe have a parade and bring some marching bands in, or some of the drill teams that the old Emancipation parades used to host, or maybe talent shows like the old Emancipation celebrations used to host. Maybe have famous guest speakers like the old Emancipations used to host. We're starting to move in that direction, but yeah, I hope that we can make it bigger and better and more grand every year, so that it's something that will rival Carabana in Toronto like it once did before.
So why is it so important that we continue to celebrate Emancipation, especially here in Windsor?
Well, Windsor was one of the main endposts of the Underground Railroad, and it was the Emancipation Decree that made Canada a safe space for those freedom seekers trying to escape from the slavery that was in the United States at the time. And a lot of the Black families here are descended of those freedom seekers that came here. So that's our ancestry, really, and our ancestors that we're honoring by maintaining a celebration. That's part of what makes it so important as well.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, hopefully the weather holds up this weekend. Tonight, 2 musicians will perform together on stage in Windsor. That's after digitally duetting last summer. Kathleen Hughes posted a duet on TikTok with Montreal singer Alex Nichol. They paired together for a cover of California Dreamin'. That's the video that first got the 2 singing together. It wasn't until last night they met in person just to get a jam session in ahead of tonight's show.
Hi. It is such a pleasure to meet you. Oh, I loved hearing your duet this whole time.
Oh my God, I was so excited to meet you today.
What a beautiful connection.
Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Come.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Oh my God, this is beautiful.
yeah. I just remember that first time that I heard your duet. I opened my phone and I was just taken aback.
Oh.
Your voice is so beautiful. Your voice is so beautiful.
Well, the first time I even found out who Alex was he posted a video doing California Dreaming by the Mamas and the Papas. And I obviously duetted the video. And after that, we followed each other. And then not too long ago, it was actually very out of the blue, and yet it's so fantastic how it went down. I just got a comment on my video. He let me know that he was performing this Thursday. And I was just totally down for it. I was like, heck yeah. So I messaged him and I was like, I think it would be totally dope to do a song, like a performance with you. Just let me know the details, and here we are.
California dreaming on such a winter's California dreaming on such a winter's California dreaming on such a winter's day. That was so awesome. We did it.
Well, did it ever feel like a typical warm August day in Windsor, Essex? Coming up, we'll get a look at whether it will stay hot. Health Canada is reviewing popular diabetes and weight loss drugs like Ozempic. That's after reports that taking them may lead to an increased risk of suicide. Canada isn't the only country looking into that link. As the CBC's Christine Birak reports, so are health agencies in Europe and the UK.
It's like legitimately horrific side effects.
I feel okay. I'm a little bit cheap.
The stories are all over social media.
I was violently vomiting to the point where I was vomiting blood.
After taking a medication for type 2 diabetes that's also being used for weight loss, patients worldwide are reporting possibly alarming side effects from drugs like Ozempic. Health Canada says it's examining the risks of suicidal ideation, thoughts of self-harm, and suicide reported by patients taking these medications. The agency now says it's aware of 26 reports of suicidal thoughts, but adds they're not medically confirmed yet. The UK and European medicines agencies are doing similar investigations.
Every medication that comes onto the market needs to be looked at for adverse side effects.
This obesity doctor says if the reports are confirmed, health agencies then need to figure out whether the medication is causing the condition.
Anyone who's seeking weight management actively is at a higher risk of suicidal ideation, and that's been documented in clinical trials. So the question is this just a correlation, or is it actually a causation?
And the next step means that we need to start running the studies.
Based on reports, researchers are also studying whether the risk of thyroid cancer increases while taking the newer obesity drugs.
There was a study that was published a few months ago that found in Europe that there might be a potential association. And so what we're trying to do is replicate that same style of study to see is that actually happening or not.
Novo Nordisk, the company that makes Ozempic, says it's working with health authorities and researchers to make sure patient safety information, including side effects, is accurately listed on their products. Doctors insist before taking any drug, patients need to make sure the benefits outweigh the risks. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, we got a fantastic blast of sun hitting Windsor right now. Ethan Williams has had a nice week of weather to forecast with Call It Away. Here's a look at what to expect as we peak at that long weekend.
Well, Meg, we've kind of seen our daytime highs increase heading through this week. We started in those comfortable mid-20s a little bit earlier in the week, and now this afternoon we were up into the mid-20s, getting close to 30 degrees in much of southwestern Ontario. Factor in the humidex, feeling like the low to mid-30s in a lot of places, and that has fueled a little bit of instability in the atmosphere. A low-pressure system and a cold front moving through today, triggering off some showers and storms. Tomorrow, that's out of our way. There is still a little bit of a thunderstorm threat for portions of southwestern Ontario tomorrow. Chatham kind of northeastward from there through London and Kitchener, but it's only a level 1 out of 4 risk, so not quite as high as we were seeing in places today. Now, there is that cold front that I was mentioning, which could bring through a few showers and thunderstorms this evening and overnight, but once that's out of our hair, we are clearing out as we head through the day tomorrow, and even as we start the long weekend, it looks as though high pressure is going to be moving back in place through much of southern Ontario, and that means that we'll be starting on a pretty sunny note. Now, most of the moisture that's going to be falling from storms tonight going to be well to our east. We're seeing those severe storms in the Ottawa area and southeastern Ontario this afternoon, so that's not really going to impact us all that much. And with high pressure moving back in, we're seeing winds stay pretty moderate over these next couple of days. Maybe a few rogue gusts here and there, kind of in the 30-kilometer-an-hour range, but overall not too concerned about that. In terms of our forecast for the next few days here, going to be a tad muggy tomorrow with humidex values getting back into those mid-30s, very similar to what we saw today. Weekend starting nice and then clouding over as we head through the back half of the weekend, and could get a little gusty with some possibly severe storms on Monday, but then things quickly clearing out after that. Temperatures returning to near seasonal values. Humidity looks to be staying down a little bit as well as we head into the beginning of next week. Showers here and there. All in all, as we head into the long weekend here, Meg, looking like not too bad of a forecast.
Well, thanks so much for that, Ethan. Good news for the country's Swiftie fans who are going to get the opportunity to see Taylor Swift multiple times in Canada. I'll tell you more about that coming up. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to 4 charges related to his effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election. He made a short appearance in a Washington court a little earlier this afternoon. CBC's Chris Reyes has the latest.
Former President Donald Trump arrived in Washington, D.C. under historic circumstances to face criminal charges for the 3rd time this year. The federal courthouse where the proceeding was taking place was ready for it, surrounded by barricades, police, a handful of demonstrators, and a lot of media. Trump arrived by motorcade using the underground garage. Once inside, he was placed under arrest. Trump is facing 4 counts in total, including conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding in connection with his efforts to overturn the 2020 election, which he lost. Special counsel Jack Smith, who has led the investigation that led to these charges, was inside the courtroom. Now, Trump has not stopped claiming that the election was stolen from him, despite no evidence to prove the case. This morning, he posted on social media, "I am now going to Washington, D.C. to be arrested for having challenged a corrupt, rigged, and stolen election. It is a great honor because I am being arrested for you. Make America great again." Now, President Joe Biden, who is currently in his vacation home in Delaware, was asked about the arraignment.
Mr. President, will you be following the arraignment today, sir?
No. The courthouse is just blocks away from the Capitol, which is a symbolic backdrop to the whole proceeding, given that the January 6th attack on that building features prominently in this historic indictment. In the 45-page document unsealed earlier this week, prosecutors charged that Trump's lies fueled tensions that led to violence that ensued on that day. Now, the judge assigned to this case an Obama appointee, Tanya Chutkan, who has already handed down tough sentences on some of the defendants involved in storming the Capitol. Now, what happened today was essentially a procedural appearance, meaning that Trump faced a magistrate judge. No trial date has been set, and the big question really is that whether these proceedings and the 2 other cases against Trump, whether they can wrap up before next year's presidential vote. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Swifties across the country are celebrating. And Grandpa, if you don't know what a Swiftie is, it's a big-time Taylor Swift fan. She's bringing her Eras Tour to Canada after all. The singer-songwriter will perform 6 nights in Toronto at the Rogers Centre in November 2024. Swift will be the first artist to perform 6 nights at the stadium in a single tour. Tickets will go on sale August 9th with verified fan registration open now through Sunday. That's a Ticketmaster platform meant to battle online scalper bots. Canadian stops were not included in the initial tour announcement, prompting a chorus of disappointment online from fans, or at least the ones who couldn't snag tickets to her shows in Detroit earlier this year. Well, hundreds of items belonging to Freddie Mercury, including song drafts and his beloved piano, are going up for auction.
This is a man's life in the round, his private world, his public world. It's not just about beautiful things, the beautiful things Freddie liked to surround himself with.
More than 1,400 of Mercury's personal possessions are currently on display at an auction house in London. The Queen frontman gave the vast collection to a close friend, and the items have been left undisturbed in his mansion since he died in 1991. The handwritten draft of Bohemian Rhapsody is expected to fetch up to $2 million. Mercury's Yamaha Baby grand piano is expected to sell for as much as $5 million. The auction is set for August 9th. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. As usual, The National is on at 10 on television and streaming platforms. CBC News is looking tonight at cities around the world having to struggle with heat. Well, that's it for tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in.